Hey, good afternoon, everybody. This is Aaron Shaha. I'm the CISO for CyberMaxx, and I'm going to talk to you about a few trends we see, some things we're looking at for 2024, some ideas in the field, and just kind of general cybersecurity tradecraft that we're seeing. So as you can see on the screen, I am from CyberMaxx. We're a MDR leader in the field. You can see some of the stats and numbers. Give you a quick few bullet points why I chose CyberMaxx and why I'm here. So my time at the DoD, where I was before this, really showed me how critical it was to be able to detect, emerging threats, large data sets, new and innovative things that attackers and adversaries were doing. And I really feel like CyberMaxx is bringing that to the front. We have a very strong research team for a company our size. You're going to see later on, we're going to talk about the ransomware readiness report. They give us lots of information on geopolitical events, other interesting pieces for ransomware, just general ransomware research, stats, things like that. So it's very important, I think, to roll that in. So my DoD time really kind of showed me the importance there. I worked as a technical director in the MDR SOC for Route 9B, and that really gave me a real appreciation to understand how critical it is to have good client communications. And I think that's an area CyberMaxx is really well positioned for. We have a great communications team. We have good salespeople, technical leaders, things like that communicate very well with our clients to kind of let you understand what's happening on your network. And they really do share a passion as part of a commitment to secure those client networks. And they're very excited about doing that every day. Then I moved on to Deloitte. At Deloitte, I ran hunted incident response for North America. And that really helped me understand the business aspect of cybersecurity. What a lot of people in our space don't understand is that everything in security is a business decision. And by being able to kind of pair those two things, you can really help your company make improvements, right? Good detections without, blowing through budgets, right? Having, shelfware, right? Sometimes we'll buy very expensive products, they'll sit on the shelf. By understanding the business context and kind of what's going on in the business underneath, it gives us a really good visibility to help us make informed decisions. And we're going to talk a little bit about why business is important as we go on. So what are some of the market dynamics we're looking at today in the field? Well, as everybody's aware, we're seeing increasing sophistication and frequency of attacks, right? The attackers are getting good. We're going to touch a little bit on that. Not everything is a nation state, but there are nation state actors that are looking to target some of us in the verticals we're in. So we try to focus on mid-market. We're very involved with healthcare. We're going to kind of talk a little bit about that to see where, some of those attacks are coming from. And, if you do have a nation state level adversary coming after you, which not all of you will, but that's a very challenging actor to defend against. 66% increase in ransomware attacks between 2022 and 2023 based on our research. That's quite a large growth, right? I would kill for that performance in my 401k, say. And then we have a lot of complexity in the pace of change for our technology out there, right? COVID really shook a lot up. A lot of companies moved to more of a hybrid model. Still a lot of traditional places. Again, we're big into healthcare, in the healthcare vertical. So those look a lot more like traditional networks, but they do blend some of the hybrid environment where you have a lot of laptop workers work from home into the cloud. A lot of people looking to outsource MDR by 2025. That's a big deal. Many companies, based on my time, I've seen underestimate the amount of effort that's taken to stand up a SOC, right, and really do that well, to establish 24/7 operations, things like that. And based on that, we're seeing increasing pressure on funding and resources, right? 2024 looks to be a flat to down year in budgets. So it's very challenging for CISOs, other security practitioners to be able to maximize their utilization of what's there. So you can see approximately 50% of their org say their budget is flat to down, and couple that with the cybercrime economy is booming, right? And we're looking at possibly $10.5 trillion is an estimate out there globally for cybercrime, right? That's an enormous number. Even if that's even if we're off by 90% there, right? It's still $1 trillion is an enormous amount of money for these cyber operators to be siphoning off our economy. So some of the things we've uncovered in our ransomware research report, we've seen increased threat in healthcare, advertising, construction, largely due to the B2B client base, right? So things like MoveIt, Okta, 3CX. we're seeing a lot of double extortion tactics happening, right? Couple different variations on that, right? So you have the exploitation of the network, the siphoning off of data, and then possibly the actors either sell to a ransomware actor or are the ransomware actors themselves. That's a little fuzzy. Attribution is the hardest thing we do, but what happens is the actor will exploit your network, steal your data, hold that for ransomware your network. So now you have pay the ransom, and then after you do that, they say, oh, by the way, we've also got all this data. It'd be a shame if that got out there. So that's the double extortion aspect of that. Very interesting novel twist that came out. Very unfortunate for the company that it happened to. The company was exploited, had some challenges in working with the release of the data and through the SEC. And the actual adversary went to the SEC and gave the SEC a report, filed a report that said the company was attacked and breached. Some of the news reports I saw, the adversary was hoping to get some of the reward for turning that in. I don't know if that's true or not. Seems a little too on the nose. But that's another factor of that double extortion tactic that's growing, right? So your company gets hit, and now you've got the actor, or maybe friends of the actor, maybe a third party that could be working with the actor that's now looking to make an SEC case out of that, and hopefully get some of the reward money if you have some failures in your reporting process. So something very challenging for CISOs and other leaders to pay attention to. Again, we're seeing company IP, intellectual property, and PII, personally identifiable information, being the main targets of these attacks. So the attackers are very aggressively going after that data, siphoning out of the network and pulling it out, right? So in healthcare, where we're big in, that's a very large problem. That PII, that protected PHI, protected health information, is very valuable. You can use it in multiple different ways, right? I can, not only do I do the traditional fraud, right, opening credit cards, things like that I would do with PII exfiltration, but I'm going to look at things like Medicare fraud, prescription fraud, insurance fraud, right? There's lots of different angles I can take to also leverage that data. So it's much more valuable than just your traditional credit card number and a social security number. So there's some interesting twists happening in the market. Companies that perhaps don't have quite as big of a market share, right, are still getting targeted by this, which tends to speak to the fact that this might not all be financially motivated. There's certainly a large financial motivation there, but the fact that gross profits aren't being the sole metric, and people are targeting the whales, is an interesting turn of events, and we're still really trying to understand what that is. You can see a couple of breaches in the last 30 days that have happened, and where things are, kind of where we are in the industry. So what are the challenges that all of our customers face? Well, many customers, right, are running IT shops. The IT shops are stressed. They just have too much tech to be configured. Very difficult to get your arms around everything that you own. There's a recent article about a manufacturing vertical where they had $80 million in AWS bills being put on company credit cards that were paid. So a lot of people spinning up DevOps, shadow IT functionality, things like that were being put on company credit cards and not centralized by IT, right? So there's just too much out there, right? We've all had the shelfware problem where we go buy something awesome, we drop it in our network, maybe it generates too many alerts, we got to pull it out, turn it off, ignore it, right? Because we don't have time to sit down and analyze it and configure it. Same thing with some of the hardware purchases we make. We might go grab a great piece of hardware, key personnel leave, right? Very difficult and challenging for IT to stay on top of all of the security infrastructure that we have, right? Couple that with the alert overload, right? Everything wants to chirp at us now and give us an alert. So we've got to figure out, how do we store that? Can we afford to store it? Once we get it stored, how do we mine that? How do we set a clipping level to make sure that we're only getting relevant alerts, but how do we know that we're not tuning out relevant false positives, right? So that's one of the trends that we're seeing in the security outsourcing is, that alert overload is really corrosive to SOCs, especially if you're trying to build your own. A lot of hidden costs there, things that are very difficult to come to grips with, right, from monitoring. You bring in, a very small understaffed SOC. How are they going to deal with that, right? So by outsourcing that to another MDR provider, like we're seeing the trends show, that really outsources the expertise, right, to somebody who can do that. And yes, they might actually have more clients than you do, but they have the expertise in tuning those alerts and being able to focus on that. And really that works well in kind of a co-managed solution. That's one of the areas we offer, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in the next section on visibility. So the lack of visibility, right? You get too many alerts, maybe you tune out too many. You have to figure out how to store it. Can your SIM or SIEM, depending on how you prefer to pronounce it, handle that level? Do you have enough seats, licenses for people to get in there? Is it alerting properly? Who's watching it at 5 o'clock on a Friday night? Because we all know that nothing good happens at 5 o'clock on a Friday night. So that's when your events are going to happen. So one of the things we offer is a co-managed service where you can get access to the SIM, you can get access to our company portal, and we work together with your SOC, right, or your security expert. So everybody's kind of hand in hand working together, right? It's a partnership that brings it in. So that really helps bring out those efficiencies for the system, things like that. We're seeing limited response times, right? Ransomware every 6 seconds, right? In a network, it hits on that Friday night, and every 6 seconds, a new box is getting popped, right? Bang, 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 right? If you don't have somebody watching the store 24/7, right? By the time you come in Monday, right, every 6 seconds, that the box is getting tipped over, right? You're going to have a real problem come Monday morning, right? So it's really important to have somebody watching the store, having proper network segmentation to buy yourself that time, that response time, right? Zero trust environments can both help and hinder some of this, right? If we're looking at a more traditional network like the hospitals, like we spoke about, right? We want to make sure that we have proper segmentation between network segments. So one segment does get hit, right? We're stopping and mitigating that, right? Traditional firewalls, right? We've been doing it for 30 years in IT to help limit that blast radius from a potential impact. And then the security expertise gaps, right? It's just hard to find people in general, right? Couple that with cybersecurity professionals. Very difficult to find the people that we need, find people that are willing to work nights and weekends. Again, I think that's one of the reasons we're kind of seeing that trend to bringing in dedicated MDR providers, more of a partnership thing. So if you're in a company, you can have your security professionals work the day shift, outsource to nights and weekends, off hours, right? Kind of 24/7 monitoring to a company. And you'll see that's why one of the reasons we have a global bench, right? We work with both Ireland as well as the Philippines, helps us follow the sun, allows us to shift resources around as we need them, and then work very closely with your security team to develop those expertise gaps. So let's dive in a little bit on a couple of these. Too much tech to be configured and lack of visibility. So what does this look like for 2024, right? Cloud homogeneity, where everybody's consolidating into Azure, or everybody's consolidating into AWS or Google Cloud or Oracle Cloud. It's a good thing. It makes a lot of sense from the business side. Not having to get into the data center, swap out hard disks, things like that makes a lot of sense. The problem is all of our eggs are really now in one basket. So when we have things like Microsoft Teams have an outage, right? It really impacts our business and really knocks down our performance and siphons off resources, right? It makes it difficult in this distributed environment to be able to function, right? So we're very reliant on a few key technologies. Now, those companies that are providing this do a good job of disaster recovery, continuity, backups, things like that. But there are holes in this, and they have gone down, and that's something we want to plan for as we go forward. The attacker has the ground truth view. So I come from the Department of Defense. My background's there. I did almost 15 years studying everything from physical security in the infantry all the way through the DoD, working on the internet backbone providers, looking for attackers as they transited DoD networks through choke points in the DoD at speed. What do I mean by the attacker has ground truth? In Vietnam, we talked about reporters going out to the field and getting the ground truth, understanding what was actually happening on the ground, as opposed to reporting that kind of happened up to the channels. Same type of thing happens in cyber. We have old network maps. We have old understanding of where our infrastructure is. We might have inaccurate patching. We might have a spreadsheet of assets. That $80 million I talked about, right, from the global manufacturer, they don't understand what everything is there, but the attacker does. The attacker has a very narrow aperture to which they're going to view the network. but it's a very accurate assessment of what they're seeing. And as a defender, we're trying to defend against that. And there's a fundamental misalignment between attack and defense there, where it's an asymmetric PowerPoint for the attacker. They have very accurate understanding of what's happening on the network, on the ground. The attacker, or I'm sorry, the defender is operating more from an abstract view, from a higher level view. So it does benefit the attacker in some cases to be there. We're also seeing strained critical infrastructure, right? We saw on the previous slide, we talked about shrinking budgets, things like that. We are starting to see in 2024, there's been a few attacks against power plants overseas with ransomware. That's an interesting development to definitely keep our eyes on. That could be adversaries testing the water, trying to figure out new tradecraft. And that's going to tie into some themes we're going to see a little bit further on here. Security expertise gaps, right? We kind of hit on that earlier, but we have that decreased funding challenges. We also have to try and find these people that are out there, right? Highly competitive environment for some people. There have been some layoffs in the security field. It's a very interesting time from the security perspective to understand what's actually happening out there. Couple that with, right, the year of 2024 appears to be the year of the proxy war, right? As I speak on this, we have Gaza, Israel, Ukraine, Russia, we have Venezuela, Guyana, we have the Red Sea kicking off. We have lots of different threats that are out there that are proxy wars for larger powers that are fighting, and that could have some blowback in cyber operations. Right now, we're not seeing that. My supposition there is that we're seeing those countries that are working with those proxy agents are very tied up on the local front, but there could be some blowback later on as those proxy wars continue and kind of evolve. Cyber could become a very key component in some of that to be able to push out, right? We're really seeing geopolitical uncertainty, stresses, challenges we haven't seen in a generation. Really, kind of, I put that note, challenges from everywhere, right? Between the budget, some gaps in strained critical resources. We're seeing healthcare resources strained in the US for a variety of reasons. We're seeing the budgets. We're seeing the geopolitical conflicts that are happening with proxy wars. There's just a lot of different challenges we have to try and keep our eye on. And then we have limited response time and alert overload, right? You kind of hear about this repeated theme kind of over the years, alert fatigue, right? Those are very corrosive to the SOCs. Too many alerts, too many false positives, wasting our time, right? Remember, every 6 seconds, right, that ransomware could be ticking and hitting our network, right? And we have a real problem on our hands if we have that alert fatigue and we're missing those alerts because we've tuned things out, we're not paying attention to them, et cetera. AI is both a blessing and a curse here. There are some ways that AI can really help accelerate the offense and the defensive side. It's gonna help both, right? You build a 12-foot ladder, somebody builds a 13-foot wall, and vice versa. So we're seeing, can AI actually create malware? There's some research out there that shows that yes, they can do some polymorphic action, things like that can really throw off some of our detections. But they could also help us maybe on the LLM side, the flash to bang, right? They could help us detect things quicker from the defensive side. So very interesting area to watch. I wouldn't anticipate anything blockbuster there because of the 12-foot ladder, 13-foot wall, 13-foot ladder, 14-foot wall phenomenon. But we are going to see some increased use of AI on both sides of the fence. So how are we making a difference? Again, we talked about that partnership. We really see you as a partner in this. Our visibility, we want you to be a co-managed solution. We enjoy that. That really helps us work together. Cyber is a team sport. We want to make sure we're all in the same place and defending those networks. And then the leadership and teamwork. We have great leadership in here. We're very wise about how we're spending our money. We're not trying to be a flash in the pan where we might not be around in a year if you come to us. We're going to try and make intelligent business decisions to be able to be around for 5 years, so you can bring in your resources to us and have that trusted confidence that we're going to be there for you as a partner over the years. So thank you for listening to me. If you're interested in more, visit cybermaxx.com, and I appreciate all your time. Thank you.